And we're back for some Combat Corner. There was a fight that had a lot of eyeballs tuned in this weekend. I certainly was tracking its progress on Twitter, as it seems like most periscopes are unable to be found. But yeah, it was an awesome weekend for fighting. And Max, tell me about all the highlights and hits. Go for it.
Yeah, it looked like a pretty solid card on paper, and it ended up being maybe even a little better than that. The big news: Dustin Poirier hands Conor McGregor his first loss by knockout, TKO, whatever you want to call it. That, I mean, you knew Dustin Poirier had power in his hands, but it was just so hard to imagine him getting the better of Conor McGregor in striking like that, because he would have to put himself at so much risk, let alone doing it in the first 2 rounds where all of Conor McGregor's knockouts have happened. But he did it. And not only did he do it, but he did it with such a textbook performance of being exactly what you're supposed to do at Conor McGregor. It was one of those, it makes you question, wow, why did anyone ever think that was so hard? And before I go any further, I want to say I think Conor McGregor looked as good as he's ever looked. I think the only difference between the Conor McGregor who was the man of that legend and the Conor McGregor who stepped into the cage is that at lightweight, he is not as big for the division and carries a bit less power in his hands. But in terms of distance management, in terms of footwork, in terms of pressure, in terms of striking accuracy, I thought that was all there. So I don't buy any excuses that, oh, it's not the same Conor. Oh, he's just not as hungry, not as motivated. We'll never see that Conor again. I don't accept that. Conor McGregor looked like Conor McGregor to me. Dustin Poirier just finally did what so many coaches, anyone, it's not hard to say how you beat Conor McGregor. It's just hard to beat Conor McGregor. The two things he did: grapple him early and kick the legs. Why do you grapple him early? Because that's how you put blood in the arms, fill them with lactic acid, and take away some of that power that makes him so dangerous. And Dustin Poirier did it great. He shot a surprise takedown, caught Conor off guard, took it to the ground. McGregor knows that's how people are going to try and beat him. He's known that for years, and he's put in consistent work in the grappling, not to mention the camp he had to prepare against Khabib. So even though he was caught flat on his butt, unprepared, he scrambled right back up to his feet, which is just another indicator for me that he was on point, being like caught so off guard, but then getting right back up. But then Poirier just made it ugly for 2 minutes against the cage, and it was really a 50-50 clinch battle. Like, McGregor showed him a thing or two about shoulder strikes whenever Poirier tried to land some. McGregor had a couple nice knees. Poirier had some good knees and strikes, but it wasn't about who can land more damage in the clinch. It was about just making Conor work and taking a little something out of those arms. Then at range, I gotta say, the first kick Poirier threw, I went, oh no, because it looked to me a lot like their first fight. That first kick came out of range from too far away. He didn't set it up with anything, and a lot of the kicks he threw actually looked naked to me, but that's why he's in there and I'm not, because Conor never countered them. So Poirier was reading something on when to time them, when not to time them. I said why the clinch works. The reason the kicks work is because of Conor's stance. That wide karate stance that leans heavy on, or generates power by leaning so heavy on the legs. And the other thing is, the more you have your foot kind of perpendicular to your opponent, the more you're presenting that calf instead of that shin. So it just makes it an easier target to hit the calf, and it doesn't take many, as we've learned over the years. Maybe Conor had to learn that. the hard way because he had no answer for them. He Poirier was saying in interviews, even when Conor was checking them, the checks were still doing at least as much, if not more damage to Conor than to Poirier. And so Poirier was just happy to keep throwing them and just money in the bank. I mean, Conor won the first round on all the judges' scorecards. I was cheering for Poirier going into this fight if it's not clear. So all of my analysis was through the eyes of a concerned Poirier fan. And that's maybe why I'm saying Conor looked good, because the first round, I mean, the kicks were landing, but Conor was pressuring. He managed to get Poirier's back against the cage many times in that first round, and he managed to land some shots. But I think the power is a little less heavy than it was at featherweight, because McGregor looked like a skeleton for those last few weigh-ins at featherweight. Like, that was a man taking every bit of water out of his frame. Whereas at lightweight, he's just a normal fighter. I mean, he's not tiny, but he's not oversized the way he was at featherweight. But he still obviously knows how to generate power and can still pack a punch. And if you put your guard in the wrong spot, he will knock you out. But Dustin Poirier did not put his guard in the wrong spot. He kept his chin moving, kept his head rolling, even when he was getting tagged. He said in an interview there was one punch where he felt hurt, and like if Conor had managed to follow it up with another one, he would have been in trouble. But Conor didn't see it. I didn't see it. Poirier kept his poker face and just kept moving. Then second round, the leg kicks really money in the bank. He kept going back to them. And then Conor just guard down against the cage, couldn't move properly at that point, and it was just a matter of finishing, which, I mean, you love the crisp, accurate, powerful hands of Dustin Poirier to do that. He's shown over his career at lightweight, when he gets the opportunity to close, he can and will, and that's exactly what he did. So congratulations to Dustin Poirier. That was very fun to watch. You should apologize to my mom, though, for making me shout so loud that I woke her up at 1 a.m. or whatever. That was fun. Now, the one other thing I wanted to add was Conor didn't show any of that kickboxing. He really didn't throw many kicks. He returned one to Poirier, and he had a spinning back kick in there, but other than that, he really wasn't kicking, especially having that their first fight so fresh in my mind. My interpretation of that is that it's a cardio choice. He looked pretty reserved in terms of his output. Like, he knew he could be in for 5 rounds, and he didn't want to empty the gas tank in the first 2, because Dustin Poirier is absolutely the kind of fighter who would make you suffer in the 4th and 5th round if you didn't have the gas tank for that. So he was still able to pressure Poirier against the cage, but there was a little versatility lacking in the offense, which probably made the defensive reads a little easier for Poirier, but I think it was honestly the right decision from Conor, and you have seen him throw a lot less of those kicks ever since the first Diaz fight, where he just gassed so hard after having a first round of throwing all those fancy kicks. So no kicks. I think pretty explainable, like a decision that was necessary, not like a regression in his game. The other thing was Conor's best punch might have been the jab in that fight, which is very unusual, and I think that was just a consequence of being southpaw. In a southpaw orthodox, your straight is got the cleanest path of entry and is the easiest to land. In southpaw, just like orthodox, it's the jab. So I think that's why Conor didn't land as many left hands as some people might be used to seeing. So Dustin Poirier is, I think we can say, the number 1 fighter in the division right now. I mean, it is a little frustrating to know where exactly this win should put him or what it should do to him, because relative to everyone in the lightweight division, we really can't say that much about Conor. His only win against an active fighter in the UFC is Cowboy at this moment, who hasn't been fighting at lightweight either. His last lightweight losses were to Tony Ferguson and Justin Gaethje, wins over Ali Quinta and Anthony Hernandez. So we can say that puts Conor somewhere in between those guys. And I'm really curious as to what comes next from him, because he was very classy in his Octagon interview. He just fessed up like, I wasn't the man tonight. Dustin was. Congrats to him. I think he's frustrated at himself for inactivity. So I think he has a real opportunity in front of him now. What do you want? How do you want us to remember you? Because right now, we're going to remember you for that featherweight run that culminated in a lightweight championship, first double champ, and then you sold the rights to that. I don't know what you want to call it, but banked on that to get the Floyd Mayweather fight. That's it. That's your legacy right now. If you want more, you have no need for more in terms of appetite, in terms of material want. You have everything you've ever dreamed of and probably more. It's about your legacy as a fighter right now, because in term like the Mount Rushmore of goats, you are a pebble next to. So if that frustrates you, you've got to get hungrier. You've got to fight more. You can't just fight for money. You can't just pick the perfect opponent. Well, maybe you can, but maybe you can still pick the perfect opponents, because Dana White and the UFC are just going to look to put up a payday. But if you want to become the sort of fighter who beats Dustin Poirier, who beats Justin Gaethje, who beats Charles Oliveira, who beats Michael Chandler, who all of the top dogs at lightweight right now, then you've got to put a run together and get your skills to where they need to be. And I think he knows that, and he knows that the way to do that is activity. So it sounds weird to say, but I haven't been this excited about what's next for Conor McGregor since Tony Ferguson won the belt, and I thought that fight was going to happen. I think he has such an opportunity here to have a second legendary run born out of frustration. We don't stop and reevaluate ourselves after victory. We do it after a loss, and he has so much to stop and reevaluate. So I'm so curious what is going to be born out of that.